Hi,
Hi,
good to see you.
it's so good to see you.
Oh my gosh, this is like the start to my Fridays, like seeing you. And I know normally it's Wednesday, but I still think of it as like, oh, the week's almost done. And then we get to
Yeah,
commune.
I know. I know. It's good to be here. I've been looking so forward to this. I want to say since we we met a week ago, but I was like, oh, the weekend went by, and I was like, yeah, the weekend. And I had a good weekend, but then I was like, it's Monday, and we have to wait 4 days.
I had that thought on Tuesday. I was like, uh, we're not meeting sooner? What's happening here? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my
How are
goodness.
you? What have I missed?
I am, I'm doing well, and have you missed anything? I don't know. Maybe have I missed something? Probably. So, well, what I will say is what has been up for me is how we talked a little bit last week about relationships and how they're changing and shifting and all that kind of stuff. And I actually have a post-it stuck to my Mac that says friendship because I'm like, I want to really talk about, I think it's such an important topic, because you and I have talked about with our audience, we've talked about our friendship and how the ways we've cultivated and the ways we've been consistent with each other. And that's what, has been really lovely. So I've been thinking about a lot of my relationships in my life and how and also my relation so when I think about my relationships in my life, friendships, whatever, I also have to consider my relationship with myself. And I notice as I say that, I'm like, I really am I'm pausing and really think, I'm like, okay, my relationship with myself, like the journey of that and the importance of that, right? And so, but before I get into all that, I would be curious to hear. So again, so before, let's just stop, Heidi. Breathe. It's okay. Okay. All right. Um, how are you? And how was your week? So I don't want to get into all that until I know. I want to really check
Hmm.
in and ask you how you're doing.
Thank you. It's very
Yeah.
cute to see you like kind of gently interrupt yourself and also invite yourself to breathe. Like that was cute. That was really cute. Because we can do that, right? Like that to me is like, wow, how cool would it be if you're in a friendship and you're like, I need 3 breaths. I'm a little activated. And you can take them instead of pretending you're fine and then it going sideways. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So just
Yeah.
loving that the relationship you have with you, that you took care of yourself there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I also feel like, yes, taking care of myself, but taking care of you and taking care of us
Yes, the
in
4
our
us.
relationship, because that's so important to me
Hmm.
that we are grounded together so that we can continue our conversation and our reaching out to other people.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm well. The soul is happy, like doing fulfilling work. I think I had some conflict come up in relation to some friendships, and so that was weighing heavily on my mind. And there was some repair today, so that felt really good. And on a juice cleanse this week with honey, so that's its own adventure of like the mind and just like what it does. Like, ooh, popcorn, and you're like, yeah, no, like chill. Um, And then just before we got on, probably about a half hour ago, I was on a call with a record label that I really want to work with. And so just kind of like planting the seeds, it's just really exciting to be able to, in a mature way, I will say, versus my younger ways of like, I want this now. It's like to kind of take the long game. So I'll share about that a little bit more later. But thank you for asking. Yeah, mostly present, as much as a juice cleanse allows.
Yeah.
And like kind of using clary sage and things to stay grounded because there's a little bit of airlift,
Yeah.
on day 4 of a
Day
cleanse.
4?
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
And you're going to 6 or 7 days or longer?
I think this week we're going to do 5 because we noticed we needed like a day of gentle reentry. We couldn't just be like, cool, lox and bagels, like
Right.
the first day was like, let's have some rice and seaweed. Like,
Yeah.
so we realized we almost needed 2 days to re-enter like food. So yeah, and I'm excited because even just the word friendship, there's a quote. It's like always on my tea bags from traditional medicinals. That's like friendship is a sheltering tree.
Oh my God. Like that.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That actually brings, yeah, that brings up some emotion for me. It's very sweet. Wow.
And
Yeah.
so the essence of what I want friendship to be for me and for others.
Yeah.
Friendship is a sheltering tree. What a sweet place to like, soft place to land. Yeah.
Yeah.
And seeing the emotion come up for you. What's the,
Oh, I love that.
yeah.
Well, change is happening all the time,
Hmm.
right? Transition is happening all the time. And I am really aware, as much as I want to control it, that I really have no control over it. And I feel like I'm getting better at letting go of it. Like I really do feel like I'm getting better at that because of my awareness around the fact that um, what is meant to leave is meant to leave. Because when when a relationship ends, or if something ends or a window opens, let's put it in those words, right?
Hmm.
There's space for something to be invited in.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I'm going to kind of go back to about 12 months ago, 12 and a half months ago. I had 3 really huge mental and emotional traumas. And I what I realized was that it was not for me to rush through them,
Hmm.
but I really had to allow myself to feel the feelings. And even though I hate, like, I mean, at the time I was hating what I was going through because I'm like, this is so hard and
Yeah.
it's painful and I don't like it and all the stuff. Like when I got through it, and I'm talking like 3 months later, to completely really kind of feel like, okay, there's the light, there's the tunnel, and there's the light, and I see it.
Hmm.
I have to tell you that for me, that changed my perspective on relationships, because I can think of 3 or 4 people who were really with me through it, and not judging me, not just like allowing me to check in when I had the energy to check in
Hmm.
and just say, I'm doing okay, or to send a text and say, how are you doing today? That was all that I needed, because it was my process to go through. So the consistency
Yeah.
of those relationships meant the world to me. Nobody was trying to fix it because there was no fixing. I had to go through what I had to go through. And so, and the reason I'm sharing this is because I have a friend right now who has been, the month of February has been, well, I would say mid January to right now has been very challenging for my friend. And I'm allowing my friend to just simply have their process, because there's nothing that I can do except hold space and to ground and to be there for them so that they can have their process and share or not share or do whatever they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend said to me, when today's Thursday? Yeah. So we met earlier today, and my friend said to me, I feel like I'm at the beginning of the tunnel. And I can see the light in the background. I'm not quite there, but I can at least see it. And I know that the end is in sight. And I was like, good. That's great, you know? Um, so to be on the other side and to witness someone else's process when it's something really big. And this is all around, I mean, I would say 99% of our stuff is around our relationships with ourselves, with other people, right? And so, like I shared with you, what you and I have been, I mean, we've been recording this for a couple months now, but even before that, you know, I I think very intently and with a lot of integrity about my relationships. And I take them very seriously.
Yeah.
And when I think about my relationships throughout my life, I realize that the friends who are friends, first share friends in my little orchestra pit. I can't stand it. So good, right? But my little orchestra pit of first chair friends have been consistent
Mm.
and have shown up. And if a date is off, and they'll email and they'll just say let's reschedule, like you and I do, we text, right?
Mhm.
um and sometimes it's hard to get together with three or more people. Two people is a little bit easier, but three or more people can be a little challenging.
Yeah.
And I have some groups like that. And but we are all, because it's important to everyone, God, that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And those are my sister friends. They really are. And they mean the world to me. And so I'm really glad that I've had this time not being in a relationship with a man and not having that as a distraction, because that's a huge distraction for me anyway. But to not have that and to be really focused on my female friendships has been a gift
Mm.
in a million ways. And so, yeah, I mean, I get really emotional about it. And I feel very tender and really like a mama honey badger. So good. That's such a great, I just love that analogy. It really is. I mean, she really is one of my, for sure, totem animals, for sure. I mean, I really resonate, because there's times when I'm just like, I would kill, I would kill for you. Like, I really feel strongly about, my friends about, I'm like, yeah, I would put up a fight
Mm.
for these women. I really would. That's just how I feel. Yeah. So anyway, I feel like I've been kind of blah, 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 blah.
So beautiful, though. No, I hear, in terms of human needs, because that's always a place that my mind goes to, like emotional safety through consistency, right? Because you said consistency a few times, and it's like, yeah, that's the big one
Yeah.
of. And I have deep friendships that we check in every 6 months even, and so it's a different consistency,
Yeah.
right? But there are people I've known since middle school, so like the consistency has been built in a different way. And Yeah, I remember a study you were making me think of where there was basically what came out of the study was when men get married, their lifetime extends. Like they get a few more years, 6, 7 more years into their lifespan because being with someone, having that relational, hopefully it's healthy, hopefully you're having nourishing meals and nourishing connection. And for women, they noticed that wasn't there wasn't an upside
I know.
in lifespan, so to speak. And where they did see it was with their friends, with their girlfriends.
Yes.
So I think your wisdom is spot on there of nurturing and fostering and cultivating those first chair sisterhood friendships
Yeah.
because the science behind it says like that's what increases health, longevity, and lifespan for women.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like science to back some of what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. I noticed today such a tension in my heart coming into a call where there needed to be repair done and kind of having to, hear impact, right? Which is difficult. Like there's a little girl in me that can feel scolded, right? With impact, like, oh, I was really hurt by this. I was embarrassed when you did whatever the impact is.
Yeah.
And the work I've been doing has been, can I receive the feedback as behavior that didn't work for this person versus, it's behavior versus personhood, which we've talked about before. Personhood being like, I'm a bad person because of this. And it's a real dance for me to not fall into that groove of like, I must be bad and be like, this behavior was unskillful and I'm learning and I'm grateful for the feedback. Right? That's a bit of road for me to walk
Yeah.
because at first it's the young stuff of like I'm in trouble, I'm scolded, now this connection is not right, and to trust the wave of conflict and repair,
Yeah.
and that it actually does bring more closeness and trust if you're willing to ride that together,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
to your point of when you've weathered hard times and you've had friends who just consistently held space, or what you're doing for your friends now, I think acceptance is such a gift that we can give. That's like, hey, I don't need to fix it. I'm not going to give you advice. I'm not going to try to rush you along or like, kill your experience because I'm uncomfortable. Like, I've got me, I'm steady, and I can hold space for you while you either see the tunnel or don't,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
What a gift. Even right now, I think of mental health, you know, the mental health crisis that's looming, the one that's already cresting, the one that
Yes.
just comes with February, March for a lot of people, January through
Yes.
March.
Yes.
And if anyone's watching this, the idea that like if you know a friend is struggling, you don't have to rescue them. You don't have to fix it. If anything, I think fixing energy makes the person feel less accepted.
100%. Yeah.
So it's like, wow, is it kind of awesome that you can just be you and hold space? And that's really empathy.
That is empathy. And it's compassion too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's witnessing. Like it's all of it, you know?
And for you, full circle from, what was going on for you a year ago, it's shared humanity.
Yes. 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 Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So I'm going to ask if you would pause for a moment. Can you
Yeah.
pause this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I watched a video today where it was a father and daughter, and this young woman is, I'm guessing she's might be 24, 25 years old, and she has struggled her whole life with depression and suicidal ideation.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been sort of fascinated with this topic just because the percentage of people who have committed suicide or at least attempted suicide in the last year has really escalated. Like, I don't even know, I don't know what it is, but I know it's escalated from what it was before.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was listening to this conversation, and this is something she's been struggling with probably since adolescence, I would guess, maybe before that. And for me to witness the video, right? We talked about witnessing
Yeah.
earlier, to watch this conversation between father and daughter, and for him to hear her and to listen to her and to witness, I was just like, oh my God, what a gift that is. And for her to be able to say to her father what doesn't work, or what in the past, the things that you've done, this has not worked. And for him to just take that in without getting defensive, without taking it personally, but as a learning tool, I was like, parents need to know this stuff. They just do.
Yeah.
Parents and friends and, I mean, I think we all know at least one or two people in our lives who have been in that situation, or maybe ourselves,
Hmm.
um and how all we want, we don't it can't we can't be fixed. We can change, but we can't, another person will never be able to fix what we're
Hmm.
experiencing, or what we, or our, our hurt, or our depression, or our,
Right.
it's a process. And so I will speak for myself in this instance and say that when I'm struggling, that's all that I want, is for
Hmm.
someone to witness me, hold space, not judge, and maybe ask questions. And that's okay with me to ask a question. But there's no, like, I'm not asking for unsolicited advice
Yeah.
or anything like that. Just hold me in the space. That's really the most sacred thing we
Hmm.
can do for another human. And I know that, like, when I say that word, but it really is true. For me, it's true. Like, that is sacred. When the person who's being witnessed knows that that is what the other person across from them is doing for them, oh my God, what a gift that is.
It's so healing,
It
right?
is
I mean,
so healing. Oh my gosh,
I think
yes.
of at the relationship school, there's a acronym, no fracking, right? It's like easy to remember, but it's like no fixing, no rescuing, no advising, no colluding, right? Like being like, oh yeah, he is an asshole, like none of that, and no
Right.
killing someone's experience. And I have learned, at least for me, that because I used to get anxious when someone wasn't doing well, in order to alleviate my own discomfort, I would try to fix or advise or frack, basically.
Yeah.
And when I finally got on board with the belief system that people are resilient, resourceful, whole, and whatever's coming up for them is trustworthy, like it's just something that's coming up that needs to be like a wave that needs to be ridden, I could lean back and be like, wait, I don't need to rescue here. And with that girl, or this young woman that you're describing, what's so beautiful to me, if parents could listen, is like, listen to your kids' care instructions. Listen to what they tell you they need. Similarly, in a relationship, in a friendship, right? Like we have care instructions, and hopefully we're self aware enough to know them or to
Hmm.
continue to like dig deep to learn what they are. I think of something so small between you and I where you said, interrupting doesn't make you feel loved,
Yeah.
right? And so my myth, I think that interrupting and asking questions and getting curious and digging in there shows care. I can say like, yeah, that can work for some people. And you gave me some care instructions, right? That were like, yeah, that doesn't work for me. So I kind of think we're responsible for sharing our care instructions with people.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
hopefully they're responsible and receptive enough to
Yeah.
get that it might look very different than their care instructions
Hmm.
in the same situation.
Right.
Some people care is leaning in. I'll speak for me. Like, if I'm in a tough place, I want people to lean in, reassure, like pour faith into me, remind me of who I am while I'm kind of forgetting. And
Mhm.
I have friends who want nothing but space, and so loving them is giving them space, which is like, okay, but it feels so off to me because I'm being self referential.
Mm.
It's an interesting lesson.
Yeah. Yeah, because every person and everyone's personality is different,
Hmm.
really,
Yeah.
and we all have our life stories and our life experiences, and that is what has shaped us.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
And to your point about the suicide rate, I think it last checked in January was like 200%. And yeah, to me, I don't think that's a failure on the person's part. I consider that a failure on our part to care for and tend to each other, like that
Right.
emotional deficiency.
Yeah.
Sometimes I ask friends, like, how's your heart doing today? Because how are you can be so trite and rote, and we've all done that,
Yeah.
that sometimes that allows a deeper question. So I think as a society, we've failed to tend to, like, some people are slipping through the cracks that could just be like loved on and held.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Mm. Mm. So I'm curious to hear from you. I mean, you reflected on what I had said about friendship and relationships, and I'm curious to hear from you your perspective, your journey with friendships, and how it's been for you. Yeah, curious to hear about that.
Yeah. I think it's similar to my relational life. If I could see parallels of younger me wanting to be liked, wanting to fit in, wanting to be chosen. So there was a trying to kind of fit in where I could energy. Wasn't always the quality of friendships I wanted, but it was like a different drive. There was something else
Uh-huh.
driving that. And I would say I had sweet friendships in my 20s, but being in LA where people come and go, there wasn't consistency with most of them. Someone was here from Wisconsin for 2 years and then they went back or they went somewhere else or whatever because it's a bit of a dreamer city. Um, but I feel like the urgency to have that started to land for me in my, like, maybe 33, 34, when I moved to New York City. And I wanted solid friendships. I wanted people who knew me and who I could know at a deep level. So also the caliber of people I was vetting was different.
Uh-huh.
Boozy brunch like friends in LA who were all musicians. I could see where those didn't lead to depth as often.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then the piece that I hold most is something we're doing, which is like authentic relating, vulnerable, transparent, bringing it all and feeling like all is welcome. I think that's the metrics now. I don't have any friendships where I'm like faux conversating.
Right.
And it might also be, I'm going to say the gift of getting older. Like, I don't have energy and tolerance and patience
Right.
to shoot the shit anymore. I want to
Right.
know deeply who you are, what drives you, what you're struggling with, what's inspiring you.
Yeah.
I'm just curious in that way now.
Yeah.
I always was, but I couldn't get the people I was around to go deep. So it was like, I
Uh-huh.
don't know, stops and starts energetically. Like, oh, they almost went there and then they shied away, right? And that could also be just the hazards of being 22. Like, I own,
Right.
right? where I wanted to go might not have been accessible yet for a lot of people.
Right.
And
Right.
no judgment, just sort of like I felt hungry in those environments.
From a very young age.
Yeah, and I feel
Yeah.
so nourished when I started to look at my friendships and my relationships as nourishment for both, like the us.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that felt like a transitional, like a real lens shift for me.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would have had the words that but same, ditto, same to all of that.
Yeah.
And um and I'm also recalling that because because I do want to get to the depth pretty quickly, because that's just, it's where I'm comfortable, it's where I go.
Yeah.
And so I really would test the waters and put myself out there many, 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 like 100 many times,
Yeah.
that I would literally put myself out there. And if I was not met, it was I knew pretty quickly. I was like, okay. Um, and I was also, which was helpful, because then I was like, okay, so I know that I can go this far with this person.
Right.
And I know I can go this far with this person. Like on a scale of 0 to 10, I would say most people were between a 3 and a 6. Like, truthfully, that's really true. Like, if I was at a 10, which at 20, I'm like, who am I, right? But that's really who I was. Like, I'm always willing to go vulnerable and deep, which is really scary for most humanity. It's a scary place to be, but I would much rather be real and be in integrity to who I am than not. And so, and I would much rather be alone with myself
Mhm.
than in a relationship that doesn't fulfill, you know?
Ah,
Um, so anyway, there's been a lot that I have learned in my journey of 57 plus years. And I'm grateful for all of it. I really don't have, like, I when I look at my life overall, I'm like, I don't really have any regrets, because had I not gone through
yeah.
the things and have to walk through the muck with my boots or my bare feet or whatever, I wouldn't be who I am or where I am in my life. And I would not have learned the things that I've learned, so that I would have the self reflection that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Oh
I
my
mean, it's
gosh, yeah.
all really, really true.
It's
Really true.
those pearls of wisdom, right? That we can, and for anyone watching, for anyone who's losing friendships or suffering through friendships or not feeling like they're getting the depth, the quality of friendships they want, I it's a season, right? It's like there is finding your people. There absolutely is.
Yeah.
And it's a tough season if you are growth minded and wanting to dive into those depths and other people aren't comfortable there.
Right.
But to just continue, because in a way it is a bit of a numbers game. You do find those people who are just as nourished, just as psyched to geek out on the deeper layers of life.
Yeah.
And it's worth it. Like, it is worth continuing to keep an open heart towards finding those people, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I'm wholeheartedly agreeing with you. And like, as I hear you speak this language, that I'm just like, oh, yes. Like, I can feel my heart opening, because I'm like, I feel like my season of not, you know, of looking for my circle it was literally years long. And I'm like, it was a long effing season. And and I'm so glad that in the process of my season, that one thing that I consistently prayed for was patience. Because I knew, like, and I also, I think we've talked a little bit about my sort of innate faith that I've always had from a very young age. But I've always had this belief, faith, that at some point in my life, I didn't know when, but at some point in my life, I would discover, I would find and pick and choose this circle of my first chair pit of, my little orchestra. And it's happened, and it's changing. There are people leaving and coming and going, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all part of the process.
Right.
Like, it's simply part of the process. And so I'm feeling less like I want to hold on or grip onto, because I'm like, people are free to come and go as they want. Like, I really have to be okay with me. I really have to be okay with me and my relationship with myself before I can really be okay in relationship with anyone else.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who it is. Every single relationship that certainly is pertains to.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing up that season can be years, because for some people, the to keep the hope throughout those years can be difficult. And I feel this really deep, for me, gratitude, because even though it was years, there was a tenacity behind, like, I know the kind of friendships I want. And when people would leave, at least the first few times, it felt incredibly destabilizing and heartbreaking, because I had this fantasy that everyone's going to stick around forever. We're going to be forever friends, when you're younger.
Yeah.
And then really getting, like, some people are here for a season, some people are here for a year, some people are here for your lifetime, and that it's all welcome, because you're really teaching each other on some level something. um, but I just want to hold, like, sometimes when someone orbits out and you're in that space of trust, like, that can still be painful.
It can be really painful. Like, really painful. Um and for myself, what I'm noticing is that even though, like, emotionally right now, I'm feeling like there's someone that is on the precipice of leaving, and I'm working hard to not ignore it, not ignore what's happening within me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and quite honestly, I don't think that this person would necessarily orbit out permanently, but the relationship will change.
Yeah.
The relationship level, the layers of peeling back will change. And there's grief in that. Like, as we learned in our grief retreat, like, grief is perpetual, change is grief. When life, because life is changing all the time,
Yeah.
which means we're losing something because something new is coming in, like, continuously. So because of that, our grief really is all it's happening all the time.
Yeah.
Which, if we sit and think about it, it kind of feels overwhelming. Like, it feels like a lot, because it is a lot, right? And so one of the best gifts that I've given to myself is, and I can't say this is true for 100% of change that happens in my life, because I don't my head would explode. Quite honestly, if I even imagine trying to take it all in, but I think you know what I'm saying here,
Yeah.
and which is that I really do my best, especially for the bigger things like relationships and whatnot, is to feel, like, allow myself to feel the sadness, to feel the grief, to feel the
Mm-hmm.
change, and to know that it could change again. And I one of the things that I've stopped doing is using the term back to normal.
It can't. Yeah.
Not because of change, nothing will ever be, it doesn't matter what it is in your life.
Yeah.
Nothing will ever be the same, because change is perpetual. because people keep talking about this pandemic. Well, when it's over, I'm like, things will go back to normal. What is normal? Like, really, what is normal in our minds, in our belief system? What is normal? I don't even know what that means, you know? And quite honestly, I wouldn't want things to go back to the way they were, because things the way they were not great.
No, and that's something I tell people to like check themselves, especially clients, when they say that from a place of discomfort. I just want things to get back to normal because this is uncomfortable. It's like,
Yeah.
make sure you go through all that stuff and is it worth going back to? Because then it's a conscious choice.
Yeah.
You know, oh, I loved going to concerts. Cool. But like, is just getting back to the office a way to avoid the discomfort of being stuck at home? That's not exactly, you know, a compelling reason to go back to normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also want to hold eventually, right? There's like leaning into the grief, being with ourselves through the process of loss. And then also looking at it, I think of this especially with breakups, right? People can get really validly, you know, lost in the loss itself, right? And yet there's some things they're gaining at that time. So the balanced view, you can't do it too early, but at a certain point, it's like, okay, so you lost this person who wasn't willing to meet some non negotiable needs, hypothetically. But I'm willing to bet you gained advocating for yourself and having an empowered breakup and choosing you over something that's not going to fulfill you. Like, there are gains in the losses, and that trips people out a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, because we're so keen, obviously, and we're wired psychologically to look at the pain,
Right.
right? And it's like, and what are you getting to realize about how much you value certain other things?
Oh, yes.
Mm.
Oh, oh God, yes. Yes, all of that. Preach. I mean, really, this is like music to my soul. We talk about geeking out on this stuff, but I'm like, yes, there's so much for us. Um, and there's so much to consider, because when we don't, we're really missing out. Like, we really are missing out when we don't consider our options
Mm-hmm.
and really, really, literally step outside and open ourselves up, step outside the box and open ourselves up to what could potentially be hundreds or thousands of other options. What? Like, what? That sounds amazing, because it is like, I mean, I think about myself and I'm like, well, there are times when I'm really living in my box and I'm like, Heidi, what are you doing?
Mm.
Like, there's just so much more to consider here, you know? Um, and I will say, one of the things that has supported me in I'm calling that an exercise or part of my journey, or one of the layers that I peeled back, is my 300 list of things that I desire or want to bring into my life, that I want to manifest in my life. And then the 350 million that I'm manifesting, of people and nonprofits and organizations that I am going to donate. It I feel like my heart just and my mind just I get so I get so right. Like, I will say, it's really helped me to expand in a million different ways that I couldn't have imagined before, because I didn't have the support with it, and I didn't have a way to process it all. And now I do, which is,
Yeah.
and will I, and about the process, to feel supported in my process, with people saying, yeah, cheering me on, go for it, yes, and what about this, and what about, like, Yes. Like I'm creating a team and a dream and all this. I mean, it's effing amazing, you know? So yeah, like there's so many options for everybody if we simply open our hearts and our minds, which I think might sound like a cliche to some people, but it's like really, if you just to do that, even an ounce, like just a little bit. I mean, it's amazing what it can change and do for you.
Oh my gosh, I love that you're having all those feels over there, especially on a big dream like this. And I want to hold this idea that, like, yeah, you're not going to go at it alone. There might be a lot of people who have a big dream. They're like, how am I going to do it?
Right.
And it's like, newsflash, people will come on your path who are going to have pieces of the puzzle. Your job is to believe in it and move forward, right? I think of, I was 27 watching a rock and roll front woman on stage. I was a quiet poet. I like to write. I like to sit on a bench and people watch and listen to music. But there was no part of me that was like that.
Yeah.
Except my soul went that, and I went, oh shit. That's a problem. That's a big problem because I don't know how to do
Mm.
whatever's going to lead to that, the A to Z of that. And I had a mentor at the time who's like, okay, here's the thing you want. Start like, what's A? What would A be if that's the Z? Like, because I wanted to know A through Z. Let's put it that way. So no room for magic, no room for synchronicities. I wanted to know what the plan was and then execute the plan, right? And he's like, you're only going to get A, maybe B and C. And A was like finding a vocal coach because I'd never sung in that way. B was, learning timing by taking drum lessons because my timing was shit. And slowly, through synchronicities and magic, the rest unfolded, to the point of making 2 records with musicians who were far better than me, who accelerated my learning because they were easily 20 years ahead in their craft. And I was just an enthusiastic pogo stick of a human who just wanted to be around it. So they were like, okay, she's passionate about this and she doesn't have the skill sets, but we'll lift her up. We'll teach her. So to me, it's like you just don't know. You know what I mean? You just don't know the magic that will unfold from just saying yes. So to me, it's like when the why is big enough, the how does take care of itself, and you don't necessarily have to micromanage the whole how. Yeah, so cool.
Yeah.
Mm,
And I believe that it's not meant for us to micromanage.
I'm with you on that.
I mean, I think I'm a firm believer that this is where spirit comes in,
Mm,
or our guidance, or whatever we choose to call, our higher power, and to say to us, here's your team, here are your peeps,
yeah,
you know. Um, I'm giving you this so that you can do this, or I'm giving, whatever it is, because like you said, to go from A to Z, or to think I want to go to A to Z, and then someone telling you you're going to get A, you might get B and C, but you'll get A, but you won't get A to Z.
yeah.
What?
And
You
if you're
know?
waiting to start, you're waiting to
Yes.
feel ready
Yeah.
to start once you have A to Z, like you're giving up the synchronicity of C being meeting someone at a coffee shop
Right.
who is going to be all in to support. Like, we don't know those pieces.
Right.
We just don't,
Right.
And thank God, because also on the other end of that, like I think of your dream and what you shared of it with me. If you thought you could do it all alone and you could keep it kind of in a incubator vacuum, I don't know, silo kind of
Yeah.
situation, I would be robbed of like how emotionally invested I get to be and how excited I get to be about your dream and how much I get to be like, this is incredible and this is my friend's heart on full display. Like, it would be a really sad world if
Yeah.
we thought we had to go at it alone and then
Yeah.
we didn't have people who were like excited with us. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I forget about that. It's like when we are kind of going for our dreams that there are people who are like in the stands, like super excited to be let in.
Yes. Yes. Excited for us, cheering us on,
Yeah.
supporting, even if it, on whatever level that is. That's huge. That is so huge.
And the light like it sparks in my heart, that would not be there if I didn't know about your dream or my
Right.
friend's dream or that friend's dream.
Or
Like,
your dream.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like that kind of makes the whole world go round in my opinion. That we
Yeah.
do let each other in on these big like eek, dreams.
Yeah.
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 And to speak it like, to this point, speaking with the record label I've wanted to work with for years and writing some really great songs with other co-writers who were again 10 years ahead of me, 15, like just better, making my heart and the words I've put on paper better than I could at this point, to the point where I'm so compelled to record some of them. And I haven't recorded in 9, 10 years. The music industry kind of chewed me up, and I was like, no thanks. But this particular record label, these particular co-writers, it feels like home. Feels like coming into the right dock and knowing that's your peeps.
Yeah.
And I say that because just talking to them about I want to record this single and then this one and then work on the 20 songs for the album because you pick 10, and I want to work with this producer and that, like just laying it out. I mean, it's all like in dream state right at this minute. But sharing it with people who are like, yeah, we got you and we can take care of that and we can do that and let's set up a meeting about that. And it's like I'm held. I'm supported. And thank God I'm not rowing the boat by myself. Thank God there's expertise. To your point with your vision, like there are people who can hold those pieces that maybe you don't want to hold, you know?
Right. Right. And then to get really clear about what I don't want to hold and what I don't want to do and what I do want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean, I probably have more process to work to do around that. And I feel like I'm pretty clear about what I know I don't want to, what I don't want to do and
I
what
figure you would be.
yeah, because I've been thinking about, this process, like, God, it's been a year. It's been a year or a little bit more than a year since I've gotten the message. Wow, that is scary to say, but it's been a little over 12 months since I heard the message, and I was like, "What? Really? Okay."
Well, and just holding for people too that like that can happen first. The like, are
Yes.
you sure?
Are you sure? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's big stuff. We all have dreams that, to us, it doesn't matter what the dream is, it feels big to us because it's big to us and it matters. It matters to
Matters.
us and it's important to us.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's like you said, that's what makes the world go round. And then to
Yeah. And
have friends and to come back to friendship, that's, our people, our circle, our trusted, you know, um, yeah, our trusted sisters and brothers, whoever they are. That's so important. It
yeah.
really, really is. Yeah.
And the faith pouring. I mean, I think my hardest times, what's gotten me through alongside people holding space, is people reminding me of who they see me as, right? Like
Mm,
we can lose sight of ourselves in those tough spots.
yeah.
It's like when you forget who you really are, you reach out to me, and I pay that forward as well because we need to be reflected. We need to really not necessarily see through someone else's eyes, but be like, oh, yeah, I am bigger than whatever is in front of me, and be held in that way too. Yeah. Hmm.
Mm. Oh, what a great conversation.
I feel like I went on vacation,
Oh my God.
you know, like that
Yes.
space, which might be a really good point to present here that for all of us homebound and stuck, like there is a way to travel to another place
Yeah.
if the conversation is really authentic
Yeah.
and connecting.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, I love how you phrased that. Yeah. Yeah. Because I know in our conversations, I go on my own journey as I'm speaking, and I'm either sharing a memory or a dream or whatever it is. Like, because I think I've shared with you, I'm a very visual person. And so my memories are very vivid to me, and my like everything's very vivid to me. And so I'm like, so for me, it is it's like going on a vacation, a trip, or
Yeah.
so lovely. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's like the gift that keeps on giving. Yeah, I love this so much.
Me too. So grateful for however many months it's been and just the deepening, you know,
Yeah.
the deepening of it. It's really important. It's not just gaining friendships, but it's the deepening work of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Mm.
Mm.